Join us every Wednesday for InFocus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. InFocus, your government, your business.
I'm Ian Richards. Welcome to InFocus, a weekly program where we zoom in on what's happening within and throughout the government, your government. Citizen safety and security is a top priority for the government of St. Kitts and Nevis, with plans to transform law and order using updated laws, technology, and enhancing human resources. There are specific strategies and interventions under these headings that the government and law enforcement are pursuing to arrest the uptick in antisocial activities and enhance public safety. With us today to discuss some of these strategies and interventions are the Commissioner of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force, James Sutton, Deputy Commissioner of Police, Cromwell Henry, and Assistant Commissioner responsible for crime, James Mitchell. That would be Andre Mitchell. Stay with us as we delve into your government, your business. Thanks for staying with us, and allow me to welcome the 3/5 of the High Command of the Royal St. Christopher and Nevis Police Force. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Let's start, Commissioner, with you in the sense that we try to give the public a greater sense of the responsibilities of the different agencies and the individuals who head them. So let's start with you and speak about your responsibilities as Commissioner of Police.
Okay, good afternoon to everyone. My name is James Sutton. I'm Commissioner of Police. I'm grateful for the opportunity to reach out to the public on this forum to share and to give an insight on the operation of the police force. The Commissioner of Police. The Commissioner of Police has command and superintendence of the police force. He is responsible to the Minister of National Security for the effective maintenance, accountability, and good governance of the police force. In the absence of the Commissioner of Police, the Deputy Commissioner will have superintendence of my responsibilities. And in the absence of the Commissioner and the Deputy Commissioner, a more senior ACP will take up that responsibility.
Mr. Henry, can you share a bit about your post as Deputy?
Well, as the Commissioner would have said, the Deputy Commissioner provides support to the Commissioner. But in addition to that support, the Deputy Commissioner is responsible for training within the organization, human resource development, which would include training, promotion, recruitment, and transfers, anything to do with the human resource of the organization. The Deputy Commissioner oversees that. In addition, he's also responsible for discipline of the organization, within the organization, to ensure that we meet the professional standards that we hold ourselves to. Also responsible for reviewing existing policies and developing new policies to ensure that the force keep current with trends within the country.
Right. Okay. And ACP Mitchell, of course, now you have responsibility for crime as the ACP.
Yes. As head of the Crime Directorate, I'm responsible and accountable for all ethical and efficient crime investigation and detection. I'm expected to insist upon high standard of investigation, using the resources available to me, including technology, to reduce crime and bring offenders to justice ethically and professionally on behalf of the victims, their families, and indeed the Federation. A number of departments fall under my purview. These include the Criminal Investigation Department, the CID, the Violent Crimes Unit, which is the VCU, the Special Victims Unit, which is the SVU, White Collar Crime, Forensic Unit, Cybercrime Unit, the Criminal Records Office, and the Local Intelligence Unit. So these are the departments that fall under.
And there are also two other ACP posts that would be one for operations that is headed by Adolph Adams,
Yes.
and one which would be Art and I. Explain what is Art and I? Those who may not know.
Art and I mean administration, resources, technology, and intelligence.
Right, and that would be, MacArthur Brown.
ACP Brown, yes.
Right. Okay, so Commissioner, essentially you've been on the job for 4 months. How has that been going?
My first 4 months on the job was a bit challenging. Challenging in the sense that during the past 4 months we had an upsurge in gun violence. And this gun violence somewhat created a fear and havoc within the Federation. Me as Commissioner of Police sat with my high command and we deployed several strategies. One, we had 7 points. We decided to go on 7 pillars. 1, enhance our crime prevention initiative. 2, community policing. 3, road safety. 4, human resource development. 5, better use of technology. 6, ongoing collaboration with other agencies. And 7, evidence-based policing. Out of the 7 pillars I have just identified, we focused on hotspot policing. What that does mean is that we concentrated on doing geographic mapping, we oriented our patrols, and we used problem solving in hotspots and engage community. Because crime fighting should be a collective effort. We want to have everybody on board because the police cannot fight crime by ourselves. Majority of the time, 90% of the times, when crimes are committed, the police are absent. So we have to seek their public assistance in combating crime. So that makes it more challenging because our job as police officers is to ensure that the public is safe. Safe from crime, safe from everything, to enjoy the tranquility of peace in our communities. So that makes it more challenging for me as commissioner because the commissioner is one person, but collectively we have a leadership team within the organization that is responsible for the safety and security of our nation.
What would you say influenced the selection of those 7 pillars that you just outlined?
We look at the feedback from the public and based on our experience. As I've said, one of my pillars is evidence-based policing. We look at the frequency where crimes are committed. We look at some of the causes of crime and things of that nature to bring home the point. We look at road safety, the number of accidents we have seen on the road. So it's a collective effort based on our experience and feedback from our citizens in making them safe.
Now, can you speak to a bit, each of you, about the dynamics between the posts? Well, Mr. Henry, perhaps you would want to tackle it in the sense that, of course, you went from a position where you were a superintendent of police, and now you are the deputy commissioner of police, essentially moving from taking orders from someone to basically giving them orders. How has the dynamics been going?
Well, it has not been difficult because my style, it was not autocratic where I give orders. We work collaboratively with my staff, my operational staff, and so it's easy for me to transition into the new role. I continue to work with my officers below me, so it's not a case where I'm giving them orders. We work as a team to solve whatever problem that is before us.
Mr. Mitchell, anything that you'd like to give the insight there?
Yes, we would have worked together for many years. In fact, Henry's and myself trained together. So we all had this kind of cordial relationship. Our focus is on the people, how we can make the Federation a better place to live, to work and raise our children. There are times when you'll be promoted, there are times when others will pass you, but we have to understand that we should maintain our focus on the task at hand. And having that focus, it makes it much easier to work together, irrespective of who is in charge or who are subordinates and so forth. promotion should not be the ultimate focus in policing. Of course, people want to get up, people strive for upward mobility, increases your standard of living and so forth. But invariably, the task at hand should predominate, should be one's focus in this type of organization.
No, of course, as we discussed earlier, the High Command consists of 5 persons, but the persons who are at the rank of superintendent and below, how do they feed into the priorities and the strategies that the High Command sets in terms of being able to achieve citizen safety and security?
Well, they're responsible for executing the plan, so to speak. So we develop the strategy and they execute it. So whatever strategy that the commissioner would have outlined, his 7 pillars, the ranks below, the superintendents, the inspectors, the sergeant, they are responsible for formulating strategies within their areas of responsibility that meets the standards set by the strategic outlook of the High Command. So they basically implement the strategy that the commissioner would, or the High Command would envision.
But is there an opportunity for their opinions, their suggestions to go up, or does everything flow down? Because I know, for instance, there's a PAG advisory group.
Right. Yes, we, as I said earlier, we work as a team, and we do not just pass down orders. We make decisions collectively. We come to consensus, and whenever there's a problem, we solve it as a group and not just come up with the ideas and pass it down to them. And so it's easy for them to execute because they would have been part of the decision, whatever final decision is made. You mentioned the policy advisory group. That is where all the senior heads of departments would meet once a month to discuss issues that affects their department, affects the operation, and we come up with solutions and execute based on decisions derived from that.
To add as well is that during the course of our training in leadership, it prepares you to carry out the commander's intent. The commander will give what his intentions are, and then it is filtered down. You get feedback because everyone will have to contribute in achieving our overall objective. The objective is to safety and security. What are the dynamics? What are the changes in the trend? So these are things that we take into consideration because, you know, we at this level, we may not have all of the answers. And in order for the organization to advance, we must have the buy-in of everyone. So it's a collective effort.
And as you speak of collective effort, of course, national security, there are other partners within the infrastructure that would include the prisons, that would include immigration. Last week they were on and they shared a bit about how the police and the immigration department cooperate with each other. And of course, I would say that the major partners would be Her Majesty's Customs, well, His Majesty's Customs at this point, and also the St. Kitts Nevis Defence Force. Tell us a bit about the collaborations between these agencies.
Okay, we have wonderful collaboration. For example, we meet the heads of each department that you identify, including NEMA, would meet once monthly where the heads will discuss. We'll come together and discuss the trends, what the challenges we are facing, what are the pros, and we'll discuss matters of mutual benefit to all of us. For example, earlier this year we had the issue of immigration, illegal immigrants. We discuss such matters. Because at the same time we have an upsurge in gun violence, we look at these matters as well. So we discuss these matters at length. So when we do when information is filtered down, it is filtered down from the top. So we are consistent in the distribution of information with regard to combating crimes and violence within the country. We also look at matters, for example, the way forward. How are we going to move forward collectively in such matters? So it's a holistic approach that we're doing because we have learned from the New York issue with the 9/11 how disjointed they were when a major event did happen. So these are things that we have learned and we have put into practice and taken forward to make St. Kitts a safer place.
So there's regular intelligence sharing, regular communications, regular joint patrols or joint operations conducted.
Yes, because we still have an operation unit comprised of custom police and Defence Force officers that we work on a daily basis to do operations.
Right.
So it eliminates a lot of the red tape as well.
Crime, as you mentioned earlier, of course, is a major issue that is one that is on the mind of most persons here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and of course we want to tackle that next. But we're going to take a quick break and we'll come back and have that discussion. We'll be right back with more in Focus.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus. We continue our discussion with Commissioner of Police Sutton, Deputy Commissioner of Police Henry, and Assistant Commissioner of Police Mitchell. As we established, gentlemen, earlier, of course, there's been an uptick in criminal activity and antisocial activities here in St. Kitts and Nevis. How is the force responding?
We are responding as one unit. We, as the High Command, will meet, discuss strategies. For example, we will look at our policing strategy, we'll look at our crime and a number of reports, and we'll make our decision based on the evidence, based on our data collected. For example, the last set of homicides or last set of incident may have happened in selected areas. They appears to have been committed, most of them have been committed targeted rather than random incidents. Those are things we look at, and we will do engagement with some of these persons within the community, because previously we had applied a zero tolerance, and we realized that didn't work. So we're using an open approach. We have interaction or engagement with these persons. What are the problems? What are the issues? They come together with us and have a discussion, settle your differences, not by the gun, but by engagement or involvement in discussions. And that appeared to have happened, eased the tension somewhat. We welcome it and we continue to work because it has to be a work in progress. So that is the part in which we are pursuing, because we realize some of our regional partners are doing the same thing and are getting the same result. So it has to be a collective effort going forward.
Mm-hmm. And ACP Mitchell, is there anything in particular that you care to share in this regard? Of course, you have direct responsibility for crime.
Yes, crime investigation, yes. In addition to what the Commissioner has said, we would have introduced specialized patrol. We are continuing the methods of operation reassurance. We have also conducted our investigation, robust investigation being done, and we have seen that we would have arrested a number of persons for serious crime, for homicides, for robberies. We have taken these criminal elements off the street. We have also collaborated with our sister agencies, because the police force cannot do it alone. So we would have reached out, as the Commissioner alluded earlier, to other agencies within national security for their assistance. We have also collaborated with our international agencies, because what we find is that we're dealing with criminal activities involving firearms. We do not manufacture firearms in St. Kitts and Nevis. So we're dealing with firearms trafficking. And if we're dealing with firearm trafficking, we're dealing with transnational organized crime. So we have to engage our regional partners and our counterparts in the region and elsewhere to assist in this regard. And this is what we have been doing in response to the spike in crime, and we are continuing that effort.
Deputy.
And from a human resource perspective, our officers usually ask to rise to the challenge whenever there is this spike by going the extra mile, and their personal lives have been affected in that we have suspended rest days. Well, that has been lifted, but during the peak of the upsurge, all rest days were suspended. So it means that officers would have to come back to work on their off day, just so that we have sufficient presence to pursue our mandate. We suspended vacation leave, so officers who otherwise would have been on vacation, their vacation has been placed on hold, so they cannot go on vacation. And this was necessary so that we could have sufficient manpower to respond in the way that we want to respond. Whenever persons are off on rest day, whenever persons are on vacation, it depletes our resources that we have available for operations. And so by suspending these activities, it enables us to have the resources to respond. And so we have done that, and we want to take this opportunity to thank the officers for their sacrifice, because it is a sacrifice. Persons are expected to stay home with their families when they're off. Some persons had planned to travel with their families for vacation. This is the summer vacation. Some children are traveling. Officers would have had plans to travel with their kids, and they would have had to forego all of that. And so it is a sacrifice for the officers. So we want to thank them for that sacrifice. But we have a job, we have a responsibility to ensure that the country is safe. And whenever there is any threat to the safety and security of residents of the country, then we have to put aside our own personal leisure for the benefit of the country. And that is what we have done. We have put the country first and make our officers available to respond to the situation.
But as you mentioned, the sacrifices that is made, of course, it's important then to keep up the morale of the men and women that are on the street. How were you able to achieve that?
Well, we have sessions with them. We speak with their supervisors. From the high command level, we have motivational sessions with their supervisors, so that could be filtered down. We provide compensation, that would make it worth the while for them to come back for work. And so compensation and, of course, the motivational, encouraging speeches that is necessary to keep persons going. And they have responded in a positive way to that.
Commissioner, Mr. Mitchell mentioned Operation Reassurance. What is that?
Operation Reassurance was an operation we deployed to disrupt and significantly limit the abilities and capabilities of criminal activities. By doing that, we conducted several patrols, stop and searches, because our intent was to get illegal firearms off the street. We also used the opportunity to arrest persons wanted by the police. We did that, we used it as well to gather intelligence as to what is happening out there, and to give the public the assurance that we want to make the community as safe as possible. Okay, that is the whole synopsis of Operation Reassurance. We wanted to give that reassurance and to get more information in regard to what is happening on the street.
The deputy just mentioned that there was some relaxation, so to speak, in terms of the demands that were placed on the persons, the men and women of the force on the street. Does that mean Operation Reassurance is winding down? Where is it in this stage?
Oh, it is still ongoing, because we realized with implementation of Operation Reassurance, it coincided with our policing strategy of hotspot policing as well. So, and we realized since we implement these strategies, our crime level has decreased. We are right now where we are is about 9% to where we were last year. Even though we have increases in homicide and robberies, those are the only two that are showing increases. Apart from that, all other crimes are showing a downward trend. So it's based upon the statistics, we have benefited from Operation Reassurance and hotspot policing.
And so can you give us a sense then in terms of some feedback on the type of investigations? Of course, I know that there will be some limitations in terms of things that you may not be able to discuss because of a sensitive nature of the work that the police carries out. But in the sense of the gun crimes as it relates to the intelligence gathering, the being able to look into the illegal importation of it, because I recall, of course, you hear about operations being conducted at the RLB where there are some drugs that maybe have been detected, but we really don't hear much about any firearms being detected. Of course, that doesn't necessarily mean that they come through the legal ports. But speak to us a bit about combating the gun crimes, in particular the importation of guns and some of the intelligence. Anyone can answer.
Okay, we are a part of an organization within the Caribbean Law Enforcement where across the Caribbean is a Caribbean investigation, a gun investigation unit, and each country has to establish their own sub-unit. We in SKNIS have done that. where we have a collection of officers who are tasked with investigating such matters. Because, as Mr. Mitchell said earlier, we do not produce guns here. So all the firearms that have been recovered by the police will have to be e-trace. What that means is it's put into a database to see the history or the profile with regard to that particular firearm. So it's a joint effort within the law enforcement. We as well seek information as to the whereabouts of these guns. We provide information, we pay award monies for persons who provide information in this regard, because it's important. We cannot fight crime by ourselves. We have to do whatever it takes legally to get to the bottom of it. We have seen where a number of guns came through our local ports. So we intend to improve in that area by the use of canine dogs, handheld X-ray machine, and big good old local intelligence. Because it is important to use whatever resources we have. We have a number of porous borders. If we look at the proximity of St. Kitts to the other island, we do a lot of fishing. A number of persons can move from one of the islands within an hour, half an hour, unknown to the police. So we are seeking the public assistance, and when they see something of abnormal nature or suspicious, to share with the police. We have had incidents of confidentiality as well, and that is something we're trying to stamp out of the organization. Because when persons provide information to the police, it puts persons at risk. And we have to eliminate that, because we have to build public trust in the work of the police. So it's a collective effort that we are doing in this regard, because guns were made to kill.
ACP Mitchell, in respect to the gun tracing issue that the Commissioner just mentioned, any successes that you are able to share at this time?
We have taken off the street 20 firearms for the year. And this has been done through collaboration. When you're dealing with gun-related crimes, you have to collaborate, not only locally, but regionally. And as the Commissioner said, there's a setting up of the gun investigation unit. There's also working with the Caribbean. There's an agreement through UN to stop the proliferation of firearms around the Caribbean or in the Caribbean in a sustainable manner by the year 2030. They would have set out 4 goals which we have to implement because we are part of that agreement. We have a national action plan. We have a team to work this plan. And one of the areas is to reinforce our regulatory framework. There's another goal which speaks to bolstering law enforcement capacity to deal with firearm and ammunition. Training people. One of the capacity building initiatives that was undertaken just recently is one that has to do with identifying component parts and ammunition coming through our local ports. So there are 4 goals and there are 55 priority actions that we need to follow, which we are following. And this is very important if we're going to stem the flow of firearm-related crimes in our federation. As I said before, it is beyond a single country in the Caribbean. It means that we need to collaborate and we need to work the various plans to the effect that we can stop the proliferation of firearm and ammunition into the St. Kitts and Nevis and also in the region.
Have we seen any cases where a gun has been used to commit different crimes in country? Have the investigations revealed that?
There have been cases where a gun has been used to commit a number of offenses. And we know that because we do our ballistics. We do our ballistics right here. And we also do e-trace, where we discover that where the guns came from, where it was purchased. And there's information that guns coming to our federation would have been involved in other crimes internationally. So it's all about working together, sharing of the information and using specialized equipment to analyze the firearm when those firearms are retrieved from the streets of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Deputy, perhaps you can share a bit about some of the equipment again. Of course, we appreciate the sensitive nature of the matter, but a bit about, I know that for instance that there's a forensic microscope. What can you tell us a bit about some of the equipment that the force uses and its being able to collaborate with international partners such as maybe the FBI or whoever can be done to assist in tracing guns and ammunition?
In the past we used to send our firearms overseas to be tested ballistically or fly in a ballistic expert each time we have a gun case to test our weapons. We now have the capability to do it locally. In fact, we have been assisting other regional countries in their own examination of firearms ballistically. So we have the necessary equipment to do the comparisons between shells found at scenes and weapons that are recovered to determine whether or not the weapon was used in a particular crime. We are able to link crimes that were committed here, the weapons that were used in crimes here, with crimes in other jurisdictions. In fact, in one instance, persons got jail time in the US for weapons that were found in St. Kitts following the investigation. So we're able to link the weapons that were found in St. Kitts to a person in the US, and those persons are currently serving time. So we do have the capacity and the necessary equipment to do our ballistic tests, to aid our own investigations locally and investigation from a jurisdiction outside the country.
And I do appreciate you citing that case because it was a follow-up question that I had in terms of some of the success stories from that. So it's very good to hear that persons who would have been committing crimes internationally, it crossed the borders, they're not protected still.
Right.
Justice is being pursued and justice is being executed.
And there are matters that are currently ongoing now, investigations that are currently ongoing for weapons that were found in St. Kitts and came from overseas, and those investigations are ongoing.
So as we speak about the proliferation of gun crimes then, are there any plans to have a gun amnesty or gun buyback program, anything of that sort?
That was discussed. We haven't definitively concluded on that, but it is a matter that is being discussed currently, whether we should do it or how we should be done, and what are the benefits of such a program. Because we have seen in other jurisdictions where it was done, and the criminals use it to their advantage. You know,
in what way?
They would bring in an old gun to get, and then they keep their better guns. They get paid for the old guns that they bring in, and they go and buy a better one. So you bring in an old gun, you get $2,000 from the government, and then you go buy a new one for $2,000. And so we've seen where criminals have used such a program to their benefit. And so we have to carefully examine the pros and the cons before we come to a conclusion whether or not that is something we would want to try.
Now, the cabinet recently announced that there was going to be stiffer penalties increased for gun-related crimes. Commissioner, what was the force's response to this decision?
Okay, we were integral in part in that we gave our blessings to it, where we contributed to the increase in many ways. So we are in full support of the government's decision to increase the penalties, because we wanted to send a message to persons out there to keep away from these guns. These guns are destroying lives in many ways, and we want, not really, the penalty is somewhat of a deterrent. Okay, I know sometimes when you increase penalties, the people can become more secretive with regard to this thing, but we want to send a message of deterrence in this regard. Guns are dangerous, they were made to kill, and we want to set people to keep away from these.
And do you think realistically that would be an effective deterrent?
Well, it left to be seen in that regard, because we will, the whole thing, as I said, we want to deter persons. So we would not know that what the result will be until some time, because one of the pillars that I have used is evidence-based policing.
Mr. Mitchell, the Commissioner spoke earlier about the increases in robberies and break-ins. Tell us a bit about that.
There has been a recent spike in the offenses of robberies and breaking. But when we look at the data, the actual data says to us that we're still down.
Compared to
last year, the corresponding period last year. With respect to robberies, we're down by 24%. break-ins, we are down by 33%. So although we would have seen a spike of recent times, our data suggests that we are still below last year. But we have done a number of things to control the recent increase in robberies and break-ins. First of all, we would have arrested a number of persons for both robberies and break-ins. We intend to arrest more persons, and that information will be made available to you shortly. Of course, we would have put forward our strategic patrol, which we think is working, is helping to slow down the rate of crime. We have distributed to business people, to educate people on how to protect themselves. We have used our CCTV to good effect. So these are the measures that have been done, are put in place to address robberies and breaking, notwithstanding that they are below last year's figure. We still believe that we have to be proactive, and we believe by taking the criminal element out of it, making people responsible for their crime, by arresting people, we believe this will stem the flow of other crimes. So I think that's what we have done, and we continue to do that through vigorous investigation and also the preventative aspect of it, that we prefer to prevent than detect. If you prevent, there's no need to detect. So we have put in our strategic patrol, which we think will help in that regard.
A quick follow-up, you just mentioned that the statistics suggest that crime is down. Are there plans to release any statistics?
We have done so. I think we have released the first quarter statistics, and we intend to release the second quarter statistics when they become available. So yes, we have released statistics, and we intend to continue.
Right. Okay, and ICP Mitchell just mentioned as well too, in terms of crime being detected. What is the detection rate here in St. Kitts and Nevis, and how does it compare to the international standard?
It fluctuates up and down, but I think right now it's at 30%. 31%. The international standard is 33%, and by the end of the year we would get to that, because we were there last year.
Let me add to what the Deputy Commissioner has said. The detection rate is 31%. So we would have solved 208 cases for the year, going at 35 crimes per month in terms of solvability. There are quite a number of crimes that are at various stages of investigation. Quite a number. Some of them we're waiting for the victims to make up their mind. That they make a report, they may have the evidence, but they wait, we have to give them time to make up their mind. And as the trend shows, as the year progresses, we'll find that the detection rate will go up because we have more time to investigate. What we are employing on our subordinates is to reduce the rate of occurrence. Once we reduce the rate of occurrence, it gives the limited number of investigators, we're trying to build on that, to investigate. So we expect the detection rate to go up as the year progresses. But currently, it's at 31%. It has been this way last year. And we ended the year with just around 40% detection rate. International standard is just around 33%, which is acceptable.
So the higher the rate, the better the job is that is being done, essentially.
Correct.
So 40% we were above the international detection rate.
Significantly over.
Right. Okay. And there's so much more that we can discuss about crime, but there's another initiative that the cabinet also recently announced that would be abandoned homes. It's to deal with the problems of abandoned homes that are being used by some to plot, hide. Explain for us, Commissioner, what's happening there.
Okay, that with regard to abandoned homes, we are working in collaboration with the physical planning unit, because many of these homes are private homes. Many of these persons who own these homes might have left St. Kitts for a number of years and may not have an interest in coming back. So we have made recommendation of with regard to how could we make these persons accountable for these properties. They are not, some of them, they're not up to date with their taxes. If the government demolish these homes, who should pay for these stuff? So because these are eyesores to us as well. A number of vehicles, fall in that category as well. So it's a collective effort that we are doing from our end with other agencies in order to address this problem.
And when I say plot and hide, I was really referring specifically to, and perhaps one of you can mention it in terms of being able to plot, maybe to carry out a crime. Hide, that would be in terms of maybe hiding weapons or other sort of illegal contraband that they shouldn't have. Any comments there?
Yes, because that's what we're referring to, because persons use them to hide stolen property. Persons also use them to monitor persons, their movement, to commit crimes. Some persons use them for their, who might be vagrants, use them for other reasons. Persons use them to consume the narcotics. So, because if you allow that to fester, there's a system called the broken window system, right, where if you don't address the problem now, it might just manifest into something bigger. And that is what we're trying to eliminate. Because I have applied the crime prevention triangle. What does that mean is that you cannot take away a person's desire to commit crime, but you could take away the opportunity and the ability to commit crime.
And I was just going to reference the broken window theory, very important for being able to investigate and to maintain law and order within a society. Essentially, it says is that, well, I'll let you explain, Mr. Henry, just rather than putting words there.
You deal with things when they're small, because right, if you overlook the small things, it would fester and grow into big things.
Right.
So a lot of times when we deal with petty crimes, persons would chastise us. What y'all don't deal with the murderers? Why you harassing the man? He only swear a bad word. He only take up a small tin of beef. Why you don't look for the people who kill him? But if you allow him to take up a tin of beef, he's going to break the whole store next day. If he's allowed to take the tin of beef and nothing happens, he's going to break the store. So we deal with things when they're small. Do not allow it to fester and go into something bigger.
Right, and
it's more like creating a disciplined society. If you're able to discipline them on the small things,
right,
we're able to create a discipline on the bigger things. And so that should be the approach.
And chances are they will not do the bigger things,
right,
because they know that there will be consequence.
Accountability and justice.
Exactly.
Very important. We normally would wrap up the program around this time, but of course, there's so many other things that we have to cover. I could imagine that this show probably could be 2 hours. But we're going to push it for 1 hour, and so we're going to take a quick break and be back with more In Focus. We encourage you to stay with us.
If you haven't done it as yet, please do it today. Subscribe to our YouTube page at SKNIS Media for regular updates, live coverage, and even more information on your government. While you're at it, like, share, and interact with our Facebook and Instagram pages at SKNIS Media and SKNIS Info.
Welcome back to In Focus. Of course, with the use of social media within St. Kitts and Nevis, persons would have seen that there have been many terrible accidents, many terrible incidents involving vehicles here in St. Kitts and Nevis that has been very disturbing. And gentlemen, it is very concerning in terms of the numbers. There was a recent release that stated there's been a high number of accidents. Tell us a bit about that, and how does that compare to what we would have seen over the years?
Well, I think that is a direct link to the number of vehicles. We have a high number of vehicles on our roads. When you look at the population of persons compared to the population of vehicles, it's almost 1 to 1. We have over 30,000 vehicles on the road.
That's in St. Kitts or St. Kitts and Nevis?
St. Kitts and Nevis. And that is a high population of vehicles. We have 50,000 people. That's almost everybody. having a vehicle. At least
every adult
every
anyway.
home.
Yes.
Right, every adult, right. And so the roads are not getting any wider. We're not getting any new roads, at least not at the same pace of the number of vehicles. And so we anticipate that there would be accidents. But where our concern is the severity of the accidents. I mean, we could live with a fender bender. It's only a vehicle, it's damaged, it could be repaired. But we are concerned whenever persons are injured in these accidents. And those are the ones that really concerns us, and the ones that we are paying attention to. We've seen in the last couple of weeks a spike. I would not necessarily say an increase, but a spike in the number of injury accidents. We've had 4 persons who would have died as a result of these accidents so far for the year, in both St. Kitts and Nevis. While one death is one death too many, the number is not staggering, but it is not something that we can accept. We do not want to have any loss of life or any loss of limb, and so we are taking steps to curb these accidents. As the Commissioner would have indicated, the use of technology is one of the pillars in which he intends to ensure public safety, and so we have resorted to technology in terms of dealing with these accidents. We are in the process of introducing a photo radar system where we would have cameras, radar equipped cameras at strategic locations around the island that would capture your speed and your photo and would send that to a centralized location where we can process and have citations issued to persons, violators. We hope that in itself would be a deterrent, because persons would be aware that these things are there and that there will be a consequence when they exceed the speed limit.
Deputy, citations, some persons may not understand
Ticket.
that. I want them to understand it. Ticket.
A ticket, you get a ticket.
You can be ticketed. The police
You will be ticketed.
may not be there physically to stop you.
We will not be physically be there, but the minimum fine for a ticket is $250. It can go up depending on how fast you are driving. I think it's $100 for every 10 miles over the speed limit after the first 10 miles. So your ticket can run you $400 or $500. And if you run the risk of getting that, police showing up at your house next day with a ticket for $500 with a photo and your vehicle, it's hard for you to say that it wasn't you. And so we hope that in itself will be a deterrent, and persons would really curb their speed, because the faster you drive, and if you're involved in an accident, the more severe the accident would be. And so if you're driving within the speed limit, the risk of an accident is reduced, and if you become involved in an accident, the severity of the accident is reduced. And so we hope that we'll keep persons within the speed limit using technology. We also see an increase in accidents at the stoplights, those junctions that are controlled by traffic lights. And that is mainly caused by persons who do not comply with the signals, the light signals. The red light means stop, and for some persons it means go. And so they would go and cause an accident. We also intend to use technology to address that. Persons who run the red light, your image will be captured and you will be penalized accordingly.
Because I can tell you, I saw 2 instances of that on the way here on Keon Street. Mm-hmm. Of course, there was one by the traffic lights there by 4th Street.
Yes.
And there was one close to government headquarters, close to Church Street.
Church Street,
where
yes.
The traffic lights there by College Street. There are instances of that. And it is something that I will say that, has really been a concern of myself as well. So I'm aware that the infrastructure in terms of the lights, that they have that capability to host cameras.
Yes,
and so that is certainly welcome news, because the concern, not necessarily just for other vehicles, of course that's important, but in pedestrians.
Right.
Someone who may be on the sidewalk, someone who may be crossing when it is legal to do so.
Right, and then somebody run the light and strike the pedestrian.
Right.
So yes, so we intend to use technology, because we cannot put a police officer by every junction. We cannot put a police officer on every main road where people would speed. And so we want to have a consistent presence. And the only way we can do that is to use technology, so that we will be free to do other things while the technology take care of the enforcement.
Gentlemen, we're almost out of time for this program, but I can't let you leave without discussing the issue of smoking in public. We want to start with the recent marijuana legislation that was passed in the House. Commissioner, what can you share there in terms of how the men and the women are responding to this legislation? Have they been briefed appropriately? What is the police force doing?
Okay, with the recent amendment with regard to the use and abuse of marijuana, it's an ongoing process because we have to go back into training with regard to our officers to, for example, to look at, take possession out of it. We also look at, we as a discipline organization, we have sought advice from we are seeking advice presently from the legal advice from the AG's office, because we want to put policies in place to curb the use of marijuana within a discipline organization. Because based on the legislation, there's a specific section that speaks to the use of marijuana before doing employment, to commence your employment. And if you're a police officer, you have a very strenuous job, a very difficult job. You don't know when you'll be called upon outside of your actual duty to perform. And because of that, the nature of the marijuana, the things that are associated with it, we want to be on the safe path. So we are seeking legal guidance in that regard, because we do not want to infringe on anyone's constitutional rights either. We want to be respectful, but we want to be certain as to the way forward in that respect.
But of course, there were some restrictions that were placed. You can't operate, well, you can't use marijuana and operate a vehicle. You know, there's the common sense discussions. I believe I termed it as when we were discussing it with the Attorney General sometime back on the program. So that is the obvious thing. And so you were speaking specifically about the way marijuana use could impact the men and women within the force themselves. But what about those? Do they understand? Has there been a briefing in terms of what is allowed by the public, how much they can carry, how much they can grow in their property, what is a secured space? Has that been tackled?
Yes, it has. I mean, I think by now all the officers are fully aware. Music festival, leading up to music festival, there was a lot of debate, there was a lot of talk about marijuana and marijuana use. And so we were keeping them abreast with the changes in the law. They're well aware now that persons are permitted to smoke in public as long as they're in a designated area. And so you cannot just walk in the street and smoke, but if there's a designated area at a bar, at an event, of course you can do that, and the police are aware of that. You will not see a police going in a designated area and chasing the people from who are smoking. And smoking here doesn't mean necessarily marijuana. You can smoke anything once you're in a designated area. The Commissioner would have mentioned the police are well aware that possession of marijuana is no longer an offense if you have possession up to a certain amount. I think that amount is 56 grams. If you have below 56 grams, you are entitled to have that. So you will not be offending the law in terms of possession. But if you go beyond that, then that will be a different offense. You'll be deemed to have it for the purpose of trafficking, because persons are not allowed to traffic in marijuana.
And of course the police can't be everywhere at every time, and so I'm glad that you mentioned it, because I was also going to make the point, ACP Mitchell, in the sense of it does not just include marijuana, it includes cigarettes.
Right.
It includes vaping as well. So now we have a number of visitors, and the cruise season, of course, it's a bit on the downside, of course, but when it picks up, you know, there are some persons who may come who may not be aware. So how does the police force intend to work with Tourism Authority or the cruise ships or the agents or whatever, in terms of being able to ensure that the persons that come to St. Kitts and Nevis, whether on cruise ship or by air, that they are aware of what the laws are, and they should really avoid running afoul of it?
It is done through education. Education like this forum. You know, we need to educate the public, we need to educate our fellow officers. They are the ones that are going to enforce the law. And as the Deputy Commissioner said, we continue to educate our juniors. When it is not clear, or when we need clarity, we will consult the AG's chambers. So we want to ensure that we do not infringe on anybody's constitutional right. So it all boils down to education, education, education.
In terms of the tourists, the Ministry of Tourism and certainly cruise ships, they're in constant communication with the cruise ships, and they would inform the cruise ships of our laws, and the cruise ships would inform their guests. So the guests who are coming off the ships, they are educated by the cruise ships. So they know coming off the ship what is permitted and what is not. They themselves have strict drug use policy aboard the ships, and so they let their guests know what is the policy for the ship and what is the policy for the country in which they're landing. So visitors coming off the ship, they are well aware of what is acceptable and what is not, based on the briefing that they would have gotten from the ship.
Gentlemen, as we mentioned, we're almost out of time, but of course the program is on Wednesday. It's rebroadcast on several days of different stations, different mediums. So as we speak, on Wednesday, tomorrow, is the state funeral for the former Governor General S.W. Tapley Seaton, Sir Tapley, of course. What is the force's involvement in the state funeral?
We play an active role, second to the Defense Force. The Defense Force is the lead when it comes to the state funeral. As the armed unit, we work in collaboration with them. So we will play a secondary role to the Defense Force, but just as important a role for the occasion. So we will have, wherever you find the Defense Force officers, you will find police. So we will cut down, but the commanding officer will come from the Defense Force.
So, for example, the bearing of the casket, bearing of the body, that will be done jointly by police and Defense Force. So you will have a combination of police and Defense Force bearing the casket. The firing party, that will be a combination of police and Defense Force. The sentries, when the body is lying state at government headquarters or government house, you will see a combination of police and soldiers at that location, acting as sentries. At the funeral itself, the procession, the mourning detail and the rear detachment and the leading detachment, you will see a combination of police and Defense Force. Of course, you would have other units from within the national security infrastructure, but police and Defense Force would be prominently featured on the parade.
Gentlemen, we know that there is, of course, a new training class that is about to begin, and so that deals with staffing, and we know that, of course, there are a lot more issues that we can cover, but unfortunately we're out of time. But what it does mean is that we'd like to have you back at some time, and so we hope that that can happen a lot sooner rather than later. Commissioner of Police Sutton, Deputy Commissioner of Police Henry, and ACP, Assistant Commissioner of Police Mitchell, thank you so very much for joining us for today's program.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
And we would like to thank you, our viewers and listeners, for joining us every week for In Focus. We certainly do appreciate your attention and the feedback that you have been getting. We would like to thank you so much. Join us next week at the same place, at the same time for another edition of In Focus. I'm Ian Richards.
Join us every Wednesday for In Focus, a weekly talk show produced by the SKNIS Information Service, where we provide exclusives with key persons within the government and discuss pertinent, relevant, and interesting matters that affect us all. Tune in every Wednesday, live on ZIZ Radio and streamed live on Facebook at SKNIS Media and ZIZ Online. In Focus, your government, your business.